Well, let's get straight into the big story of the day. Annastacia Palaszczuk has resigned as Premier of Queensland. She was quite emotional as she announced her resignation effective next Friday.
Thank you to my cabinet and my staff. Thank you to the Labor Party, to all of our frontline workers, but most of all, thank you to every single Queenslander. Sorry. It's been the greatest on my life, and our best days are well and truly ahead of us.
Who's more upset, Joe, Queenslanders or Annastacia Palaszczuk?
Well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I think Annastacia Palaszczuk is a genuinely nice person, and let's not forget, this is the woman who took the Labor Party in Queensland from a kitchen table. Like, literally, the whole caucus could have sat around a kitchen table after Campbell Newman just absolutely routed them. 7 or 8 seats. That's right. And she completely turned it around. So her sort of, I suppose, unassuming style of, the mum next door or the ordinary Australian battler sort of thing that she does very well. I don't know how much of it is put on and how much of it is real. Really resonated, clearly. Having said all that, I think, like everyone on this panel, I had some serious problems with the way she handled COVID. Interestingly, she was one of the courageous few premiers who initially said schools were safe and they were going to stay open. And then the Queensland Teachers Union had a bit of a stop work meeting and suddenly schools weren't safe. So great work to those. The interesting thing I find about this, and if you compare it to the Daniel Andrews resignation, both Queensland and Victoria are actually run by the left. And unlike Andrews, Palaszczuk is technically a member of the right, but the left have all the numbers. So she didn't have the numbers in her caucus to continue if the left ever decided they wanted to put Stephen Miles in, or the other one who might be putting her hand up, and she no longer had the antidote to not having support in the caucus room, which is being hugely popular with the public. That has just completely nosedived.
But Jojo, look at the entire state. The latest survey I saw was the LNP had 53% against 47% for Labor. The problem was she passed her use-by date, too many mistakes. She might have started out as an ordinary person, but she became a fairly haughty red carpet person. Well beyond the ordinary person. Yeah. She'd lost their hearts, she'd lost their minds, and this came up in August. And in August we were told, fairly obviously she's got to go. What will happen, they said in August, was there'll be a few months. So in a few months, what will happen is we'll let her cool down and then she'll announce her retirement. Well, here we are in December, exactly 3 months later. And she was told if she does that, she'll go out a Labor hero. What did Albo call her today? A Labor hero.
Yeah. But I just think goodbye and good riddance, to be honest. Joe, talking about the way she handled COVID was appalling. Yep. The ideal quote, Queensland hospitals are for Queenslanders. That is her legacy.
There's a dead baby because of that. That is what she leaves behind,
ridiculous commentary like that. She politicised COVID. She made a mockery of families whose loved ones were on the other side of the border. She trundled herself off to Tokyo, got an exemption for herself in the middle of the pandemic while everyone else was locked down, then let NRL families in during the NRL Grand Final. There were so many double standards during that particular 2-year period.
Because Queensland stadiums aren't just for Queenslanders.
Just, as somebody like me, I had family in WA, and that at the time was led by another dictator, Martin McGowan, and I was pro-families at the time, and that is what I remember of her legacy.
And yet here's the paradox, right? She was all of that, and yet Queenslanders kept voting for her.
Yeah, they loved her. And again, I think it was that kind of girl next door vibe she put out. She didn't come across as too haughty. She didn't come across as too pretentious. She didn't talk down to them. She came across as one of them. And again, I don't know her well enough to know how much of that was real or how much of that was an act, because it resonated really well in focus groups. But yeah, clearly I think the ball, I mean, she wasn't even trying in the last year or so. Like, she was going on the overseas trips. She knew that the red carpets were hurting her. She kept going on them. Maybe she's just young and in love and that's what she wanted to do. That's great. But she clearly had given up a long time ago.